this video, we are dividing polynomials. Our objectives, what you want to be able to say you can do, is to divide a polynomial by a monomial, to divide polynomials using the long division algorithm, and to divide a polynomial by a binomial of the form x minus a using synthetic division. So let's get started with that first objective, dividing by a monomial. Here we have a polynomial divided by the monomial 3xyz. We know that that's a monomial because it's just one term, mono, one term in your denominator, one term that it's being divided by. When you have a problem like this, you just divide every term in your numerator by your denominator. And then you simplify. 3 over 3 is 1. X squared over x is x. Y cubed over y is y squared, and that z stays in the bottom. Your next term, 9 divided by 3 is 3. X to the 5th over x, you can cancel one out, that gives you x to the 4th. Your y's cancel out, and you're able to take out one of your z's, so you'll just have one z in your numerator. Then you'll subtract, you can take out one x, you can divide out one x, you can divide out the y's, you can divide out one z, so you have z cubed times x cubed times z to the 4th all over 3. That would be your simplified final quotient. That would be your final answer. So that's dividing by a monomial. Now let's try something a little different. Let's just divide by a polynomial, and make sure you make a correction in your guided notes. I did type that wrong in your notes. Alright, so the steps here, you're going to start by rewriting using long division, that long division format. So like when you were little, what's being divided goes in the house. That's called the dividend. In the house is the dividend, and what you're dividing by is your divisor. So what we'll do is we'll divide the first term of our dividend by the first term of our divisor, and we'll write that result in the quotient. So look here, I've color-coded it for you. The first term of your dividend is x cubed. The first term of your divisor is x squared. So x cubed divided by x squared, what is that? What would you have to multiply x squared by to get x cubed? It would just be x, and line that up above the x, the linear term in your quotient. Okay, so that is the result of dividing x cubed by x squared. And let's move on to step 3. Then what we do is we take that x and we multiply it by our divisor, and that product goes below our dividend. X times x squared is x cubed, x times x is x squared, and x times negative 2x is negative 2. Our product is there in purple, and it is below our dividend. Step 4, we subtract that entire product, and then we'll bring down another term. So we're subtracting that entire product. X cubed minus x cubed is nothing. 4 minus 1 is 3. And 1x minus 2 minus a negative 2 makes it a positive 3x. And then you bring down that next term, that negative 6. Again, you got to be really careful because you have to divide you have to subtract all of those numbers. Make sure you're not just adding, it is subtracting. Okay, now step 5 here, we just repeat the process. So we look and we say, okay, x squared, what would I have to multiply it by to get 3x squared? Well, that's a 3. Now take that 3 and multiply it by your entire divisor. 3 times x squared is 3x squared. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times -2 is -6. Now subtract that whole purple polynomial from the one above it. 3 minus 3 is 0. 3 minus 3 is 0. And -6 minus -6 is 0. So there you have it. That divides evenly. There is no remainder. And that actually means something kind of important for us. We are going to go to the next page and take an important note down. A remainder of 0, like we just found, indicates that the divisor, what you are dividing by, and your quotient, the answer, are factors of the dividend. Meaning you could write it this way. The dividend is your quotient times your divisor. They divide nice and even, and there is no remainder whatsoever. So in this next example, in example 3, we want to determine if this is a factor. If x minus 2 is a factor of 3x cubed minus 8x squared plus 14. Based on what we just wrote, a remainder of 0 means they're a factor. So if we divide and there's no remainder, it's a factor. So I want to get us started here by using the long division format, and you insert 0 as a placeholder. Let me show you what I mean there. Notice that there's no, just like x term, there's x cubed, x squared, and then it jumps to 14. Well, you have to put in a placeholder there, a 0. Now, I want to encourage you to pause this video and try to do all the long division. So pause this video right now, and then we'll go through it in just a moment. Okay, so let's get started. You want to determine x times what gives you 3x cubed. It would be 3x squared and line it up above the squared term. Find that product. It would be 3x cubed minus 6x squared, and you're going to subtract. So the cubed terms cancel. -8 minus -6 is a -2x squared, and then you have to bring down that next term. Don't forget to bring down the next term. All right, now again we find out x from my divisor. What would it have to be multiplied by to give me a -2x squared? Well, it would be a -2x. Now multiply that -2x times your divisor. That's -2x squared plus 4x, and now you're subtracting that. So your squared terms cancel. 0 minus 4, that's going to be a -4x, and bring down the 14. Now, what would you have to multiply x by to get -4x? Well, that's just a -4. Multiply -4 times your whole divisor. That's -4x, and then a +8. Your linear terms, those 4's, they cancel out. 14 minus 8 is 6. Okay, so we have a remainder. What does that mean? It means that x minus 2 is not a factor because the remainder is not 0. It's only a clean factor. It only divides evenly if the remainder is 0, and it did not. All right, so I'm going to let this be the end of part 1 of this series, and we will pick up with the definition in the next video.